Hi guys, it is April from Getting Huggy With It. Today I want to share with you what I'm hoping to read for Spookathon this year. I am also including recommendations that I think you should read for the prompts. So let's get right into it. Spookathon is a readathon hosted by Kayla over at Books and Lala, who I love. I have never participated in Spookathon before, which surprises me, but this year is the year, and it is occurring between October 14th and the 20th. And she is going it alone this year. Spookathon used to be hosted by a bunch of people, and everyone other than Kayla has, I think, quit YouTube. So she's going it alone, and I'm very grateful for it. So let's get right into the prompts. Prompt number 1 is an easy one. Read a thriller. And for me, I am planning on reading I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney. I recently read Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney and adored it. Now this one is about an actress. And this actress, everyone thinks they know her, but they don't really know how, except one person. One person knows her incredibly well and knows her secret that she doesn't want revealed. Now, that sounds relatively boring, to be honest, but Alice Feeney is like a master at twists and turns. At least in Sometimes I Lie, I was blown away. So I'm expecting big things from I Know Who You Are. So that's my thriller. If you are looking for a thriller, firstly, try Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. This was her first book, I think. And it is about a woman who is in a coma. We meet her in the coma, and she is aware of her surroundings, but obviously is in a coma, can't move her body, can't talk to anyone. And her husband and her sister are by her side, which is terrifying because she believes that her husband and her sister are the people that put her there in the first place. And it goes back and forwards in time, and you go to childhood, and you go like a week before she gets into the coma, and it is so much fun. I loved every second of it. Honestly, so many twists and turns, like most twists and turns in any thriller I've ever read. Probably. I would also recommend Final Girls by Riley Sager. This is like an homage to horror movies and to slasher flicks, and this is about the trope of the final girls, like the last person standing. It's usually a white girl in horror movies, and this follows a final girl. She was the only person who survived a brutal killing at a cabin. All of her friends were killed except her. And she becomes kind of friends with some other final girls, and slowly but surely they're being killed, and you dive into that mystery, and it's a lot of fun. I would also recommend The Woman in the Window if you haven't read this one yet. I really enjoyed this. This is about a woman who is an unreliable narrator. So she is drunk a lot. She can't leave her house. She has, I think it's agoraphobia. She just cannot leave her home. And so what she does is she gets drunk every day. She watches like old movies. And honestly, this book made me want to go and watch all of those old movies. And one day she is spying on her neighbor, which is another pastime of hers. And she sees something that is horrifying that she knows is wrong, and she can't unsee. And so she's trying to get to the bottom of what she saw. And I really enjoyed it. I know AJ Finn, there's a lot of like controversy about that, about him, and I've done a whole video about that. I'll link that somewhere for you. But I really love him, and I really love his writing, so I would recommend that as well. Okay, so prompt number 2 is read a book with red on the cover. And I mean lips. In I Know Who You Are, those are red lips. That's my answer to this. But if you are looking for a book with red on the cover, I would recommend The Silent Patient. I just finished this really recently, and I enjoyed it. This is about a woman who's in a seemingly very happy relationship. She is at home, and her husband comes home one day and she shoots him 5 times in the face. And then she stops talking and will not talk to anyone until a psychotherapist goes to visit her at this. It's like a mental institute basically for prisoners. And he starts working there, and he's like determined to find out what happened to her. This was a really fun read. Not the best thriller I've ever read, I wouldn't say. Like, a lot of people think to them it's a 5-star read. More 4-star from me. But I really enjoyed every second of it. And it was like a very fast read. So that's The Silent Patient. I also don't think you can go wrong with Pet Sematary. Pet Sematary is about a cemetery for pets. It's Stephen King, and it's about a family who moved to this little town. They live on a very busy highway, and sadly a lot of pets are killed on that highway. And the neighbor says, well, I've got a spot where you can bury your pet and it'll come back to life, but it'll come back a little bit different. And it was really a fantastic read. It's actually a lot about grief. Yes, it's a horror novel, but it really explores grief, and I enjoyed that. I also would so recommend The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This is about it's basically home invasion. Home invasion in a nasty way. This follows a little girl named Wen. She's outside catching grasshoppers at the cabin that her 2 dads have rented, or they own, I'm not sure. And this man comes up the lane and he says, what's about to happen isn't your fault. And he starts walking to the house. She runs inside, and then a bunch of other people start walking up the lane too. And they're all wielding very strange weapons. And they say, we're not going to hurt you. We just need your help to save the world. Oh my gosh. There's a bit of body horror in that one. So if you're squeamish, maybe don't go for that one. Okay, prompt number 3. Read a book with a spooky word in the title. And for me, I have decided Hex is going to be my spooky word and my spooky book. Hex is about a town, I think in America, where there is a witch that is haunting this town. Her name is the Black Rock Witch. She's a 17th century woman, and her eyes and mouth are sewn shut. She explores the town and will like stand over children's beds and just stare at them while they sleep, which is horrifying. And so this town has this woman that does this ghost, and they want to keep this hush hush. So they've got a lot of surveillance. They're really trying to keep it a secret. And these teenagers decide to rebel and basically post this witch online, and everything goes to hell. And I want to read it even though it's YA. So that is my spooky title. If you were looking for a book with a spooky word in the title, I would recommend The Death of Mrs. Westaway. I recently read this one. This is about a woman who is kind of down on her luck. She's really not doing well financially. She receives a letter in the mail, which seems to be like a godsend, because it's saying your grandmother is leaving you her fortune, basically. She's leaving you a huge inheritance, and you just have to come to her funeral and you can collect it. But she knows that this is not her grandmother for sure. So it's not her grandmother, but she's like, well, what do I have to lose? I'm doing so poorly in my life. I might as well go. And it all kind of goes to hell. Now, I will say this is much more mystery than thriller. I went into this thinking it was a thriller, and I was a little disappointed because it was much more mystery. If I had known it was a mystery, I think I would have liked it a lot more. It's also very rainy, so good for this time of year. I would also recommend Her Every Fear, and this is about a woman who has just had a horrific altercation with her ex-boyfriend. She lives in England, and she decides she needs to get away, and she needs a change of scenery, so she apartment swaps with her cousin who lives in Boston. So she goes to Boston, he goes to England, and she's staying in his apartment, and unfortunately, bad luck is kind of following her everywhere because his neighbor is found murdered, and she, like, of course dives into it and needs to know what happened. And I freaking loved that book. It's very gritty and dark and not for the faint of heart, I wouldn't say, but I really, really loved it. The last book with a spooky word in the title is Bloodwedding. This is so good. One of the best thrillers that I read last year, that's for sure. This is about a woman who's a nanny. Unfortunately, she also has a terrible memory. Like, she'll forget where she parked her car, go outside, and we'll be looking all over for it. And it's like 2 blocks down. And she's like, how did it get there? And she's like losing her memory in a very serious way. Maybe you shouldn't take care of kids if you're losing memory like that. In any case, she wakes up one day and finds the boy that she is nannying dead. And she thinks, oh my God, did I do this? And she basically goes on the run, and you unravel what is going on, and it's fantastic. Prompt number 4 is read a book with a spooky setting. So for myself, a spooky setting book to me is Severance. I'm planning on listening to this on audio. This is kind of an apocalyptic book where this Shen fever, sweeps New York, and this woman doesn't really notice it happening because she's very much an introvert. She doesn't really leave her apartment a lot. When she does, she realizes, oh, everyone is gone or dead. And she starts going through the streets of New York and taking pictures of abandoned New York. And can you imagine how creepy that would be? The isolation of that. Eventually she does meet survivors, but they do not all have the best intentions. That's one of the fun things about apocalyptic fiction and movies and TV shows is, you know, it's bad enough that the world has kind of ended, but then you add the layer of like humanity and the bad side of humanity and where people can go in their heads. So I really want to read this for that prompt. But if you are looking for a spooky setting, books with a spooky setting, I have quite a few. I have 3. 3 suggestions for you. And the first is The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. This is a haunted house story. Now it's historical fiction as well. And you will read this and think, there's no ghost in here. And then all of a sudden, the ghost will pop in and terrify you. So this is about Hundreds Hall. It is decrepit, falling apart. It's this enormous mansion. And it's falling apart because the upper class is falling at the turn of the 20th century, and the middle class is rising. And so the upper class can't afford really to have these grand mansions anymore, and it's falling apart. And we follow a doctor who represents the middle class, and he goes to Hundreds Hall to take care of a servant there. Now, he grew up kind of knowing Hundreds Hall because his mom used to be a servant there. So he knows the family kind of, and he starts to have a relationship with the family. And there's a ghost in there. So creepy. I loved it. There's also The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is a turn of the screw retelling. So in this book, we follow a woman who takes a nanny job in the Scottish Highlands. She goes to live with this family. They're architects, so they've built this amazing house that's like half Victorian. They've taken an old house and they've really modernized it with all of these high-tech features. Unfortunately, they go away on business and she's left behind, and the house starts kind of playing tricks on her and kind of starts not working the way that it should. And it's scary, but it's a thriller. It's really, really fun. Then last but not least is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is very much a nod to Rosemary's Baby. This takes place in an apartment. We follow a woman who's an apartment sitter. She's also down on her luck. Lots of people who don't have money in these books. So she doesn't have a lot of money. She takes this job because it's at this gorgeous apartment, very, very well-known apartment in New York called the Bartholomew. And she gets to live there for free. Sounds like the perfect gig, except things start happening at the apartment. The apartment itself is incredibly creepy. The wallpaper on the walls are creepy. Just things are strange there, and people are going missing there, and it's just a lot of fun. Riley Sager, basically, with almost every book he writes, he really just gives giant nods to the horror film genre a lot of the time. I just love it. So that was a really creepy scene. And the last prompt is read something you wouldn't normally read. So I don't have anything for you guys, I'm sorry to say, but for me, I'm choosing Hex. I don't usually read YA. I struggle with YA every single time I pick it up. So that is why this is the book for this prompt for me. And those are all of the books and all of the answers to the prompts for me. This is my little stack of what I am going to be reading right here. Let me know what you are going to read for Spookathon in the comments below if you're going to participate, and I will talk with you soon. Bye!